Meeting 17, Friday, February 26, pursuant to the order of reference of Monday, February 1st, 2021. Bill C-18, an act to implement the agreement on trade continuity between Canada and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Today's meeting is webcast and is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th, 21. Welcome to all of the committee members, the staff, and our witnesses. From 1 till 2:30, we have the following witnesses who will be presenting to the committee. Business Council of Canada, Trevor Kennedy, Director, Trade and International Policy. Canadian Alliance of British Pensioners, Ian Alexander, Chairman. Canadian Cattlemen's Association, Fawn Jackson, Director, International and Government Relations. Doug Sawyer, Co-Chair, International Trade Committee. From the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, we have Corrine Pullman, Senior Vice President, National Affairs and Partnerships, and Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters, Matthew Poirier, Director, Trade Policy. Welcome to you all. Mr. Kennedy, you'd like to lead off, please.
Thank you very much. And Madam Chair, committee members, thank you for the invitation to take part in your meeting on Bill C-18, an act to implement the agreement on trade continuity between Canada and the United Kingdom. The Business Council of Canada is composed of 150 chief executives and entrepreneurs of Canada's leading enterprises. Our members directly and indirectly support more than 6 million jobs across the country and hundreds of thousands of small businesses. Representing different industries and regions, these men and women are united in their commitment to make Canada the best country to live in, to work, invest, and grow. It's been said many times before, but it bears repeating. Canada is a trading nation, and many Canadian companies rely on the rules-based trading system, as well as our networks of bilateral free trade agreements to provide certainty and access to global markets. Given its prominent role in the economy, we expect international trade to be an important part of Canada's economic recovery. The facts speak for themselves. Merchandise exports to the world fell by 12.3% in 2020 because of the pandemic, a decline of $70 billion. Canada needs to work hard in the years ahead to restore and grow our exports from pre-crisis levels. The potential loss of preferential market access to the UK, secured under CIIT, presented a serious risk to the recovery for Canadian exporters. The UK is Canada's third largest merchandise export market. It was also one of the few markets in the world in which we were able to sustain our exports from last year despite the crisis. The UK, as part of the EU, has been a critical component of Canada's fast-growing transatlantic trade relationship. Before the pandemic, it accounted for 40% of Canada's merchandise exports and 36% of service exports to the EU. Merchandise exports to the UK grew by nearly 12% since provisional application. Canadian exporters had momentum in the UK before the pandemic, and it's important that we continue to grow our trade. When I spoke to the committee during negotiations, I mentioned how time-sensitive a Canada-UK trade deal is. Not only did we risk losing preferential market access by reverting to WTO most favored nation tariff rates, but many of our peers were negotiating bilateral deals that would have undermined our competitiveness in the market. Given our existing trade relationship with the UK under CITA and uncertainty surrounding the future of UK-EU relations during the negotiations, the transitional trade deal approach taken by our negotiators was the best approach for Canada. The transitional approach provided Canada with an opportunity to take this new relationship into account when we negotiate a long-term trade deal. As with Canada's existing free trade agreements, we want to ensure that we reach a conclusive deal in the future with appropriate consultation and assessment of the market opportunities for Canadian firms. The transitional approach will also allow us to do that while we maintain our position in the market. We were pleased to see that a Canada-UK trade continuity agreement manages to preserve our gains under CITA. Like CITA, TCA's benefits include the elimination of 98% of tariffs on Canadian merchandise exports to the UK and will eliminate 99% within a few years. This is in addition to important market access opportunities in government procurement and services, among others. At the same time, because Canada and the UK agreed to negotiate a new deal in the future, the TCA does not require that our future trade relationship will be based exclusively on our existing EU agreement. Our priority today is to quickly ratify the TCA. The existing Memorandum of Understanding between Canada and the UK is a helpful stopgap measure, but is time sensitive. The UK is retooling its international relationships, and there's a clear opportunity to reimagine our bilateral trade and investment ties with a comprehensive and ambitious trade agreement. We hope both parties can start working on this with stakeholders as soon as the TCA is in force. The Business Council of Canada reiterates the importance of swiftly ratifying the TCA. This agreement provides certainty for businesses at a time of great uncertainty. It will help our economy to recover by driving trade and attracting the capital needed to innovate, grow, and improve Canadians' quality of life through the creation of well-paying jobs. So thank you for the opportunity to address the committee, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kennedy. On to Ms. Sendexter for the Canadian Alliance of British Pensioners.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all committee members for the opportunity to address you today. I am sure many of you are wondering why I have been given the opportunity to speak to a committee formed to discuss future trade agreements between the UK and Canada. I hope in the next few minutes to clearly explain why we feel there is an important connection. I may be one voice, but I say we because I speak on behalf of approximately 136,000 British pensioners who have chosen Canada as their home in retirement. The vast majority of these people, like me, emigrated many years ago in response to Canada's request for certain skilled labor, such as nurses, teachers, firefighters, and tradespeople for the booming oil industry in the 1970s. Others came to Canada after working all their lives in the UK to be with family members who had already emigrated. Before leaving the UK, we worked and we paid mandatory contributions into the British State Pension Scheme, which is the equivalent of CPP, assuming that upon retirement, we would be treated equally with all British pensioners residing around the world. However, we are not treated equally because we have chosen to live in Canada, and indeed, nor are pensioners in most Commonwealth countries, resulting in almost 500,000 pensioners never receiving the annual uprating in their British pensions. We are known as frozen pensioners. You may ask why. One answer is that the UK has continuously refused requests from Canada's officials to sign a reciprocal agreement to stop this discrimination. They argue that pension increases are to take into account inflation in the UK, but they ignore the fact that they already index pensions for 500,000 expats overseas in many countries, including just to the south of us, the United States. A recent UK House of Commons briefing paper covering frozen overseas pensions states that the unfreezing of British pensions in Canada did not arise during negotiation of a social security agreement with Canada in 1959. This is not surprising. The pension payable overseas was only introduced in 1946, and movement around the world was in its infancy. There were very few people affected in 1959, but here we are 61 years later, and the UK still clings to this piece of history. As more people started to be affected during the high inflation days of the 1960s, more and more United Kingdom MPs began to receive correspondence from pensioners abroad protesting the unfairness of the freezing policy. This protest has magnified over the years as travel around the globe has exploded. Let me give you a couple of examples of the impact of this policy here in Canada. 95-year-old Peter Duffy from Vancouver lives only 300 yards from the USA border. He worked for 40 years in the UK. He flew bombers in the Second World War, and he still receives £52 per week, as he has done for 30 years. but a similar individual in the USA is paid £134. Anne Puckridge, 95, of Calgary, also a war veteran, receives only £72 a week instead of £134. Both of these seniors have been cheated out of thousands of pounds of their rightful pension, and the same is true of countless others of the 136,000 frozen pensioners in Canada. The standard boilerplate response we receive from the UK is that this is a policy that has been continued by successive governments for many years. But history doesn't mean something is right. What was applicable 70 years ago isn't in today's world. If something is morally wrong, it is wrong, plain and simple. Some years ago, our association joined forces with a similar group in Australia to begin a consolidated approach to seek justice, and the International Consortium of British Pensioners now advocates on behalf of frozen pensioners everywhere in the world. Only 2 months ago, Sir Roger Gale, a Conservative MP in the United Kingdom for 38 years and chairman of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Frozen Pensions, released a report that was extremely critical of his own government for perpetuating this practice. For decades, the UK has maintained that they are not entering into any new agreements covering frozen pensions. And yet with Brexit, the UK recently signed new pension agreements with 23 countries to ensure uprated pensions continue for all expats in EU countries, as indeed they should. The UK can no longer claim it's not entering into new agreements, and Canada should most certainly be given the opportunity to enter into an updated agreement under the current trade negotiation discussions. Earlier this week, Sir Roger Gale invited over 30 MPs from the UK and Canada to discuss ways to advance talks on the frozen pension issue. And a number of Canadian MPs, including Pensions Minister Deb Schultz, suggested that your upcoming trade negotiations would certainly be a good starting point. On behalf of the 136,000 frozen pensioners residing in Canada, we would be extremely grateful if you could raise this issue with your counterparts across the pond. As Canada enters into trade negotiations with the UK, worth an estimated $27 billion annually, there is no better time to have this critical discussion. This policy is estimated to cost the Canadian economy close to $500 million every year, and the onus to support those struggling on a very low income should not fall on the backs of the Canadian taxpayers, as it currently does, through subsidies such as GIS and welfare. One recent High Commissioner to the UK told us that the only thorn in an excellent bilateral relationship was that of frozen pensions in Canada. Surely one would have thought that as a major Commonwealth partner, Canada would have been the last place where this immoral, unjust, and discriminatory practice could have been allowed to perpetuate for so long. I hope that I have demonstrated that the current policy is a cost to Canada and deeply impacts the well-being of many of the most vulnerable in our society. In conclusion, I realize that this issue may not appear to fall within the parameters of normal trade discussions, but now more than ever, your committee is in an excellent bargaining position to demand that the UK quickly respond to the recent official request from Canada to sign a social security agreement. One definition of the word trade is to willingly give things or services and get other things or services in return. We feel that momentum to end this policy is now on our side.
Madame la Présidente, si vous me permettez, la traduction ne fonctionne pas.
Please use your
Mr.
voices.
Director, could you just hold for a moment?
C'est revenu. Merci beaucoup.
We feel that momentum to end this policy is now on our side. Please use your voices to help us. Thank you, and I would be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Indexer. Appreciate that. On to the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. Mr. Jackson or Mr. Sawyer, whichever one of you would like to go forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow committee members. I'm Doug Sawyer. I'm a rancher out here in the west in snowy Alberta, as we've heard already today. I'm also a board member of the Canadian Cattlemen's Association, the national voice of Canada's beef farmers and ranchers. With me today is Fawn Jackson, Director of Government and International Relations with the CCA. Thank you for the opportunity to reappear before the committee regarding the act to implement the agreement on trade continuity between Canada and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We refer to this agreement as a continuity agreement. Today, we advocate for two things. Firstly, we strongly encourage a swift return to the negotiating table to establish a permanent, progressive, and ambitious free trade agreement with a culmination in the UK joining the CPTPP. Secondly, we cannot replicate the trade agreement that we have under CETA in a UK FTA or CPTPP. We'll now expand on these points. The beef industry is one of Canada's largest agricultural sectors, supporting a total of 228,000 jobs and a contribution of 17.9 billion of GDP. Canadian beef and livestock genetics are sold to 58 markets around the world, and about 50% of what we produce is actually exported. Although COVID has been extremely difficult for all Canadians, agriculture stands out as a vital and resilient part of our whole economy. I am pleased to report that while COVID was very difficult for the first part of the spring of 2020, we were able to recover, and the value of trade was up 1.4% in 2020 over 2019. Having a record year despite the difficult conditions demonstrates the value of having robust and ambitious trade agreements in place. Export Development Canada reports that Canada's agriculture exports are growing 3 times faster than the overall Canadian average, confirming that agriculture products are a net cash generator for Canada's economy and an area for future growth. This is important context indeed for the conversation we are having today about trade, both for recovery and for the long-term economic health of our great country. Since it became clear that the UK would be exiting from the EU, CCA consistently communicated concerns with trade obstacles being carried over from CETA to the Canada-UK Transitional Agreement and any permanent trade agreement with them. Last time we presented before this committee, the details of the continuity agreement were not available, but today we are able to share some thoughts on what the deal means for Canadian beef producers. First of all, access. Canadian beef will have 3,279 tons of access in 2021 and 3,869 tons in 2022. All beef must be hormone-free. In 2020, Canada exported 1,415 tons, which is within the total access we have gained with some room for growth. In the same time frame, the UK exported 5,393 tons to Canada, almost 4 times more than we exported to them, and significantly over the access we have in their market in this continuity agreement. Under the continuity agreement, the UK has maintained duty-free access to the Canadian market. And so even if we were able to resolve some of the trade limiting factors on our exports, beef will not be a net even trading partner with the UK. In 2020, Canada had a negative net trade of almost $14 million with the UK and a negative net trade of $83 million with the EU. This net trade deficit has grown since the implementation of CITA. The overall Canada-EU beef trade deficit, which includes the UK, was $500,000 in 2018, $17.3 million in 2019, and an outstanding $96.8 million in 2020. Needless to say, CCA is significantly concerned with how beef trade with the EU and the UK has actually progressed. Unfortunately, because of the government trade imbalance between Canada and the EU, the growing trade imbalance, not government, sorry, the growing trade imbalance with EU and the UK has progressed. Unfortunately, because of the growing trade imbalance between Canada and the EU, we have had to ask the Government of Canada for some compensation. In future agreements, we must obtain reciprocal access. Anything less is unacceptable to our beef producers. It is disappointing to see this reciprocity has not been obtained in the continuity agreement. As you all know, CCA as an organization is a proud advocate of free trade, and we cannot have free trade in one direction without the other way. The continuity agreement does have some improvements. We are pleased with the tariff rate quota, TRQ, administration that will be handled on a first come, first served basis, which will make shipping to the UK less burdensome. Previously, the quota access was managed through a licensing system. We also recognize that this is a continuity agreement largely replicating CITA, and that without a trade agreement in place, the Canada-UK trading relationship could have fallen back to the MFN tariffs, which could halt trade between Canada and the UK. But for the reasons we have discussed today, CCA's highest priority is on achieving a long-term FTA with the UK that resolves trade barriers, enables reciprocal trade. CCA is pleased to see both governments committed to the negotiating a full FTA starting this year and encourages both parties to do so, especially given the UK formal application for access into CPTPP. Aside from reciprocal access, which we stress is imperative, there are a number of other factors that need to be addressed under a future trade agreement with the UK. We also advocate for a full systems approval. Canada has a world-renowned food safety and meat inspection system that is recognized throughout the full systems approval.
Your closing remarks, Mr. Sawyer?
I'll skip right down to them. CCA recognizes the importance of avoiding trade interruptions and the need for a transitional agreement. We are strongly advocating for a swift return to the negotiating table to establish an ambitious agreement, and we are confident that Canada has the right team of negotiators and look forward to achieving the same level of ambition that was achieved in CPTPP agreement in our UK partners. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sawyer. My apologies for having to interrupt you. For the
fine.
Canadian Federation of Independent Business, Corrine Pullman.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today to share CIIT's perspective on Bill C-18. You should have a slide presentation that was sent to you by the clerk that I'm hoping to walk you through. So I'm hoping that you'll have that in front of you as I make my speaking notes right now over the next few minutes. So first, I just want to say that CIIT is a not-for-profit, nonpartisan organization that represents about 110,000 small and medium-sized businesses across Canada. They come from every sector of the economy and are found in every region of the country. Now, it's important to remember that normally Canada's small and medium-sized enterprise employ about 90% of Canadians, and they're responsible for the bulk of new job creation. However, the last year has been particularly challenging for many small businesses many small businesses right across the country as they had to deal with shutdowns and limited capacity to help Canada deal with the pandemic. As of early February, you should know only 51% of businesses in Canada were fully open, 39% were fully staffed, and only just 25% were back to normal revenues. CFB also released some new data just yesterday that found that 7 in 10 businesses actually have taken on new debt during the pandemic, with the average debt being almost $170,000 per business. I shared these staggering numbers to highlight why it is so important to continue to find ways to bring stability and continuity to businesses trying to operate in these challenging times. And I think that is what Bill C-18 aims to do. I also believe that trade, both domestic and international, will be key to Canada's economic recovery. So agreements such as this one are essential in making sure small and, to be fair, large businesses as well have some certainty when dealing with some of our largest trading partners. So to better understand why this is so important to small businesses, I'm going to be referring to a survey we actually did back in 2017 that got almost 4,400 responses. As you can see on slide 3, if you have that in front of you, 31% of survey respondents had some experience with exporting, and 71% had some experience with importing. Now, these may be slightly higher as the survey likely attracted those than is actually out there, but they're not going to be too far off from what's actually the experience of many small businesses. For some, though, it's only an occasional thing. They maybe do it a couple times a year. Others, though, do engage in trade daily. What's important, though, is that regardless of the frequency of their trade experience, it needs to be as seamless and as easy as possible if we are to encourage more small businesses to continue to trade internationally. But which countries do they trade with? Well, as you can see on slide 4, not surprisingly, the United States, of course, dominates the trading experience as a small business in Canada. But as you'll see, more than 5% of small business owners import goods and services from the United Kingdom, and slightly more, closer to 6%, export to the UK. In fact, among small firms, the UK is the 3rd most likely region Canadian small businesses will be export to, behind only the US and the EU, and they're the 4th most likely country Canadian small firms import from. So clearly an important trading partner for small businesses. We know also that governments around the world are interested in getting more small businesses involved in international trade. So understanding what motivates them to actually get involved in trade is still an important question as well. As you can see on the slide 5, most do it because they see a growing market demand for their product or service, want to expand their business, or see good potential market opportunity. However, more than a third, 36%, are also citing favorable trade agreements as having an influence on their intention to export. So having trade agreements address small, medium-sized business trade priorities would encourage even more to engage in trade. That's why we've always welcomed the having small business or SME chapters that were included in the CPTPP, as well as the Canada-US-Mexico agreements, as their starting point in recognizing some of the challenges that may be unique to smaller firms. While CITA did not expressly have an SME chapter, there was some work done through a joint committee to recognize the unique needs of small firms. And so we would strongly encourage a continued focus on SMEs in this trade continuity agreement. We would also highly recommend that the new Canada-UK negotiated trade agreement include a small business chapter that has within it the development of such tools and activities aimed at assisting smaller firms with their trading challenges. It's because it's these types of initiatives that will ultimately encourage more smaller firms to engage in trade. At the very least, of course, trade agreements do have to help small businesses overcome some of the barriers they face. As you can see on slide 6, those challenges can include everything from currency fluctuations to the cost of shipping, but it also includes dealing with various duties and taxes and understanding rules and regulations, basically those non-tariff barriers. So we are pleased to see that Bill C-18 will honor the tariff elimination agreements made under CITA, which includes, of course, the elimination of 98% of tariffs on products exported to the UK right away, and that, of course, will go up over the next couple of years. We're also pleased to see that chapters remain on improving technical barriers to trade, as well as an emphasis to work together on regulatory cooperation. Also important, though, is to improve customs and trade facilitation, as this is often where small businesses can get discouraged. So efforts to help them better understand all the various rules, all the various customs processes will be an important component of making this trade agreement and others really work for small businesses. While much of the information I'm sharing today comes from a survey done prior to the pandemic, I did want to share some more recent data that actually illustrates that these issues remain important for small businesses even during troubling times. As you can see on slide 7, the survey was conducted just last August, and in it, we asked about what the federal government priorities should be or what should it focus on. As you can see, over 1/3 wanted the government to focus on ensuring favorable trade conditions for small businesses. And this actually jumps to more than half among manufacturing firms. And this is despite all the challenges that were in place at the time. So what we do is we want to ask that you ratify Bill C-18 and then move quickly to negotiate a comprehensive trade agreement with the UK. That trade agreement to be negotiated should include a small business chapter that addresses their unique needs and provides them with tools like a centralized website that has relevant information in plain language. It also should ensure things that Canada and the UK provide tailored information for small and medium-sized enterprise on what changes to the agreement may impact their existing trade relationships and how small businesses can benefit from the agreement. It should also focus on making customs processes easier, as this is often where the greatest stumbling blocks are for smaller companies. Incorporating some of these ideas and moving quickly on this agreement will help make sure that businesses already trading into the UK can continue to do so with limited interruption and could potentially attract even more smaller firms to engage in trade who are looking to expand into new markets. I want to thank you for your attention, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Pullman. On to Canadian manufacturers and exporter, Mr.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to participate in today's discussion. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of Canada's 90,000 manufacturers and exporters and our association's 2,500 direct members to discuss Bill C-18, the implications for Canada's manufacturing and exporting sector and the future of this vital industry. Our association's members cover all sizes of companies from all regions of the country and all industrial sectors. We represent the majority of Canada's manufacturing output, as well as Canada's value-added exports. With over 20 billion in exports, the UK is one of Canada's largest export markets. Canada-UK trade was one of our very first trade relationships and traditionally has been our doorway to the European market. According to our Management Issues Survey, which is a large biennial survey of Canadian manufacturers, the European Union and the UK in particular is the top 3 market exporters see as having the most potential in the next 5 years. As the committee knows, this is a unique situation. We have a free trade agreement with the UK for many years under CITA. So the discussion today is all about maintaining that access, and then we hope a discussion on how Canada can take advantage of a new bilateral trade agreement between Canada and the UK. We therefore fully support the Canada-UK United Kingdom Trade Continuity Agreement, and we urge swift passage of Bill C-18. This is an interim measure, is required, obviously, while our negotiators hammer out a more permanent Canada-UK agreement. Like my fellow panelists, I urge that happen as soon as possible as well. But beyond these mechanical trade agreement issues lies an even bigger problem that I must raise. That is the problem of our declining value-added export performance, a decline that has been accelerating despite signing more and more free trade agreements across the globe. Let me explain what I mean. 2/3 of Canada's value-added exports, the type of exports that Canada makes the most money off of, are manufactured goods. In other words, Canadian manufacturers take the raw ingredients, transform them into something of higher value, then sell these goods abroad. This bigger bang for your buck type of trade has been declining for years. In fact, with the UK, manufacturing exports have been declining steadily for 5 years, even after we signed CITA. Canada can no longer afford to ignore the lost economic potential the decline in value-added exports represents. It's simply not sustainable. So, how do we fix this? We have ideas. Simply put, Canada's manufacturer exporters are too small and at full capacity. Generally speaking, Canada has a higher proportion of its businesses being small SMEs than most of our global competitors. From a fundamental structural perspective, then, we need to get our companies to invest in their businesses and help them grow and scale up. Larger companies are simply better positioned to take advantage of global trade. CME's manufacturing survey results back this up. When asked what is holding them back from exporting to new markets, they told us that the risks are too high because they lack a competitive edge with foreign companies. They simply feel they can't compete and don't bother. It's important that we agree that the structural domestic business problem is driving our export underperformance. Landing new global customers through FTAs is rather pointless if we cannot produce the goods to sell to them at competitive prices. Now, you may ask yourselves, isn't this the point of EDC, BDC, CCC, and the Trade Commissioner Service? Aren't they supposed to help de-risk exporting and help SMEs get out there? The answer is yes, and we would argue they are all quite good at doing that. The problem is the disconnect between these great programs and exporters knowing that they exist. When we polled manufacturers, we found that those who use these agencies and programs love them, but a majority of respondents couldn't even identify some agencies, let alone the programs they offer. This is a big problem. So we have the dual challenge of our exporting companies being small, underinvested in, and uncompetitive, and a big gap between government assistance and companies using that assistance. Here's some concrete actions that we would like to put forward to address some of those problems. Number one, create a manufacturing and export strategy for Canada that focuses on modernizing and growing our industrial sectors. It needs to help companies invest in the technology that will help them scale up and truly become global players. We happen to have such a plan that we discussed with many of you in the past, and I would be happy to leave a copy with the clerk. Number two, launch a Made in Canada branding exercise at home and in international markets to celebrate our manufactured goods. This will boost awareness of Canadian capabilities and technologies, as well as sales and exports. The Maple Leaf is a global brand with a sterling reputation that we don't take advantage of enough. Number three, bridge government export agencies and exporters by leveraging the vast networks of business trade associations. This can be done by investing in Canada's trade associations' capacity to link the two sides and act as a concierge service for exporters. The government used to support these types of initiatives to great effect, and we think they should again. And lastly, number four, expand our efforts on SME exporter mentorship. Organizing and managing private peer mentoring networks is another way Canada's trade associations can be used to maximize company-to-company learning. All these actions are table stakes if we want to play a bigger role in global trade. They will also go a long way to helping current manufacturers maximize their export potential for years to come. However, while we at CME believe these solutions are something we need to work on now, the priority, of course, is ensuring we maintain current global market access. Let me reiterate that CME fully supports Bill C-18, and we need a transitional agreement in place between Canada and the UK as soon as possible. And in time, a permanent trade agreement between our two nations. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Poirier. Thank you to all the witnesses. On to Mr. Hoback for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, witnesses, for coming out on a nice Friday afternoon to talk about trade. That's one of my favorite topics. I'm going to start off with you, Mr. Sawyer. You raised quite a few concerns about the agreement that we have with the EU, yet this is a copycat agreement that's gone on to the UK. So as we look forward, we're not going to stand in front of this agreement. We're not going to hold it up. I think everybody understands that. But in the same breath, we have to make sure that when we go into our bilateral negotiations, that all the sectors are properly represented. So as we go forward, what would the things that you'd key on that would help the beef sector in Canada that be part of that agreement?
Well, I think there's a few, and we run into the non-tariff trade barriers that always give us grief. So we need to equalize that. We also need to very much so equalize our ability to trade in the same amount of tonnage. And that's imperative. As you've seen that huge trade imbalance, which has caused, as you see, we still have some room to move upward yet on our quota there. So those trade imbalances are caused by the non-tariff trade barriers that we're up against there. And so as we've been working through those for years, as you well know, we're not making the progress on those that we had certainly hoped. And then what would happen then if we had the non-tariff trade barriers removed, we would soon hit that quota limit. And free trade has to be free trade. So, remove them quota limits. I don't know if Fawn has anything to add to that or not.
I would just say that it's both in a future FTA with the UK, but also, as they move into CPTPP, that it has to be imperative in both of them.
So odds are we'll do the British agreement first, and then I agree with you, Fawn. We have to address the science-based approach on all our trade and how the other countries are using non-tariff trade barriers and avoiding science to restrict Canadian access for beef or other goods. So as we look at this agreement, one of the things they've said is they've made no concessions and they've given up no access to supply management. Now, supply management has been compensated in the past when they had to give up access. So when you're talking about compensation, where's your justification for compensation? Where do you feel you need compensation and why?
Fawn, I think you're close to that file, closer than I am.
Sure. And I can tell you that it was a robust discussion for our board to go down that path, but it has been extremely frustrating that we have not been able to access the European market, including the UK market, as we had anticipated, and that some of the problem is actually within Canada. And that we haven't been able to develop the supply chains, which we need support from CFIA and AFC to be able to do, to have the same sort of system, for example, that's readily available in the United States. So we're extremely frustrated, and the net trade balance has grown to a point where it is truly unbearable.
Yeah, it's amazing when I think we're importing more from the UK than we're sending there. When I look at our cost of production, we should be beating them hands down. We're more competitive. We produce a better product in a more environmentally friendly atmosphere. I just can't believe that. Mr. Poirier, I'm going to move over to you. Manufacturers and exporters, one of the things that we've always been talking about, and I'm hoping is getting addressed in this agreement, is the fact that we need to become more competitive. We need to take advantage of our trading partners and partnerships with our trading partners to become more competitive globally. Do you see those opportunities coming forward with this intern agreement? And then what other things would be changed in a final agreement that you'd like to see happen?
I think that all of our agreements, to a large extent, give us access, right? That's the key point. The issue that I sort of touched on in my remarks was before we get out the gate, we're limiting ourselves here domestically, right, in terms of our capacity. So if we're speaking about manufacturing specifically, we're at our limit in terms of what we can produce. So it's great that we get all this extra market access, but if we can't produce more goods, we're not going to be able to take advantage of the gains from exports. But in terms of the agreement itself, I know Ms. Pullman mentioned the SME chapter. We're big fans of these sort of bilateral or however chapters. So in the USMCA, for example, we have the competitiveness chapter, the SME chapter, and others that are key mechanisms to have the two countries work out problems before they become trade issues. So we would like to see that as well.
But you've brought up a domestic problem, and you said it's the fact that our Canadian companies are at 80, 90% capacity. They're not reinvesting to take advantage of these new markets. So what is holding them back? Because they're already exporting to the US in most cases. Why aren't they reinvesting in Canada?
Yeah, well, most of our production with the U.S. is sure it's a trade relationship, but it's an integrated North American production, right? So that sort of masks our performances there. When we look at other countries, other jurisdictions, Europe and the other ones around the globe, we see where we start to stumble. And yeah, like I mentioned, we're at 89% or so, which is effectively our maximum production capacity. So until we have more favorable business conditions within Canada, and that problem lays at the feet of many governments, federal and provincial, we simply cannot compete.
Wow. And that not competing is restricting the growth of our economy and the number of jobs we have in the manufacturing sector. So what sectors then do you see actually reinvestment happening here in Canada where people are saying, hey, this makes sense to do it here? Because we have all the trade agreements that, in fact, more than any other G7 country, we're positioned properly. It still comes back to that cost of production. And why are we not tackling that? What's holding us back?
Well, a number of things, but writ large, it's the cost of doing business in Canada is too high. So whether that's our tax system that's not as competitive, whether it's our investment programs and to get businesses and incentives to get businesses to invest in tech adoption, and or skill shortages, that's the number one issue for manufacturing is they can't find workers. They can't find the basic amount of workers to keep production at current levels, let alone be able to grow. So until we tackle these challenges, and that's shared by the federal government and provincial governments as well, when we're talking about cost of doing business. So until we get serious about this, what the pandemic has shown is that we need manufacturing. These are good jobs, well-paying, high-paying jobs. And frankly, if we don't do more than just paying lip service to how great it is, and don't help them by creating a more competitive business environment, that flight out of Canada, the investment will go elsewhere.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hoback. On to Ms. Bedian for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your excellent presentations on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I think I'll begin with Mr. Kennedy and the Business Council of Canada. Mr. Kennedy, you mentioned a few times during your opening remarks the importance of certainty. I have down here that it is a priority for your organization and the members that you represent to quickly ratify the TCA, and that the Business Council of Canada reiterates its request for a speedy ratification of the TCA. I was wondering if you can comment briefly, Mr. Kennedy, on proposals which I believe this committee will have before them shortly for amendments to the TCA, which would require us to go back to the negotiating table. Such amendments obviously would delay the ratification process, but also, more importantly, create uncertainty for the business community. Do you have any comments with respect to that, Mr. Kennedy?
Well, thank you for your question. And yes, I mean, swift ratification is a priority. We understand there are concerns with CITA, and I think there are sector-specific concerns that we've heard from other witnesses and in other settings. But we think in this context, the best thing that Canada can do is to provide certainty around this trade relationship. We have built a trade relationship around CITA before Brexit, and after Brexit, we want to continue that relationship to the greatest extent possible, and that's what the TCA does. Looking towards the future, and this is the key with ratifying this agreement, we have a clear commitment, we have a timeline to start negotiating a permanent arrangement, and I think, as we've heard from many people, that agreement doesn't have to be based on CITA and the relationship with the EU. We have an opportunity to recreate that relationship, and I do get a sense from counterparts in the UK that there's a lot of interest in working with Canada and building a new economic relationship. So I just reiterate that it's very important that we move forward with this agreement as is, and we move as quickly forward to start negotiating the next step in our relationship.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And let me also say that we too are hearing a lot of interest on the part of the United Kingdom to return to the negotiating table. And as a government, we certainly look forward to consulting you and the Business Council of Canada before entering those negotiations. If I can move quickly to Mr. Poirier and the Manufacturers Association, I did note with great interest some of your recommendations around communications and the importance of supporting the scale up of our manufacturers in this country. And I really do thank you for being so eloquent on those points. But I also heard you mention that you urge the swift passage of Bill C-18. And what do you think about the possibility of having to go back to the negotiating table? What effect would that have on the manufacturers that you represent? And do they want us to move forward in a way that provides certainty?
Yes. The transitional agreement is just that, right? But for ultimate certainty, a final agreement is desirable. That's the main outcome, right? We get it that the UK is trying to sign many free trade agreements in the meantime, so we'll fall into that order at some point with them. But the sooner the better for all involved. But up until this point, if the longer it drags on, the less incentive, the less willingness there will be on behalf of business to expand and grow until those fundamentals are nailed down.
Absolutely, and I certainly concur with your comment with respect to not having this drag on. If I could turn to the CFIB, I think you can see me coming already. But let me just begin by saying that you were mentioned a few times in question period today, and we certainly appreciate your engagement on behalf of small businesses and also your encouragement. We should pass swiftly Bill 14, which would continue to support our small businesses. But with respect to Bill C-18, which is before this committee today, I note that you would like to see continued focus on SMEs, that you are happy with the chapter on removing technical barriers to trade in this transitional agreement, but that you would like to see a dedicated chapter for small businesses in a final free trade agreement. So that certainly has been noted. But with respect to where we are at today and the ratification process, you did say that trade will be key to our economic. If you would also urge us to move quickly on the passage of Bill C-18 and avoid any possible return to the negotiation table at this stage.
So thank you. You did cut out briefly, but I think I got the gist of your question. Absolutely, we'd like to see Bill C-18 ratified quickly. Again, there's lots of trading relationships that are ongoing that are reliant on the rules that have been in place for the last few years with CITA. So at the very least, we need to minimize disruption at a time where things are very challenging for many businesses out there. And then moving into a new agreement relatively quickly, I think, is also really important because, again, we need stability and certainty, and when it comes to the trading relationships that are happening out there. So knowing that something's coming and that it's not going to dramatically change, or if it does, it will be to improve what's already been out there, is going to be an important message that has to be delivered as these negotiations go on. But the quicker it can happen, obviously, the better, and because that certainty is important.
Thank you very much. On to Mr. Savard-Tremblay.
Madame la Présidente, si vous me permettez, je vais prendre le tour pour le Bloc québécois.
Mr. Lemierre.
Donc, merci pour vos témoignages. Ma collègue Ben Dayan, qui est une collègue du gouvernement que je respecte particulièrement.
My colleague, who is a colleague that I respect very much, brought up a subject with Mr. Kennedy concerning consultations. So what were the consultations that took place for this strategy, and how do you wish to be consulted afterward? What mechanisms should we have, and when should those consultations take place for the Canada Business Council?
So for this negotiation itself, I think our group and other groups have been in regular contact with the team at Global Affairs as well as in the minister's office. There were two stages of the negotiation, I think at one point dating back to, I don't want to misquote the year, I believe 2018 would have been some of the initial negotiation, perhaps it was 2019. And then throughout the summer and fall and engaging with the negotiators. We had a lot of discussions about the approach that Canada was taking in the negotiation, and we understood it was meant to be a transitional approach to the negotiation. And so, the priority was in maintaining and continuing the relationship as is, and not so much about reimagining the relationship. But we fully understand, and in the documents that have been provided and the standard process that I think that the department follows, there's a lot of room for consultation. I've noticed there are many opportunities with the negotiators to interact and to share our thoughts both in writing and verbally.
Si vous me permettez, Monsieur Kennedy.
If you allow me, Mr. Kennedy, I will ask the same question to Mr. Poirier. Is it important for the Canadian manufacturers to be consulted? And were you consulted? And how would you like to be consulted for the permanent agreement?
Orders are we always have our nose in these things, and we're talking with elected representatives, with ministers, and with officials. For this one, we've gone through those same motions as for other free trade agreements. We've been active. We've also been active with our counterparts in the UK at the Make UK Association, coordinating with them too. We don't see this as a hostile negotiation by any means. It's an agreement amongst friends. So everyone's been rowing in the same direction, and we're pleased with where it's going. It could always be faster, it could always be better, but in the grand scheme of things, it's moving in the right direction. So.
Un enjeu qui est évidemment important.
One stake that's very important is the whole issue of mechanisms and the application of dispute mechanisms. So are you concerned about that, and to what extent in the permanent agreement? And do you think that Canada should go that way or not?
Toujours pour M. Poirier, s'il vous plaît.
It's for Mr. Poirier, please.
So if you could repeat the question.
Oui, ma question portait.
My question was about the mechanisms and the application of dispositions concerning disputes. Right now, there's a temporary agreement, but do you think that Canada should go in this direction or not do so, like in the context of ACUM? What do you feel about this?
Extent possible, we want to be able to match our other trade agreements. I think between USMCA for the most part and CPTPP, we have mechanisms in those and structures that we fully support. It gives business confidence in those structures. To the degree that we can replicate that, we're all for it.
Donc l'aspect de.
So the aspect of predictability is something that's important, and conformity. To what extent is that important for the people that you represent?
Say it's issue number one. Most businesses, business leaders, manufacturers are not trade experts. That's our job to sort of monitor these things for them. So the more consistent, the most consistently possible between various trade agreements, the better. Provided, of course, that they're matching good things, good elements of the trade agreements, but we don't have any fundamental flaws for our sector in any of our major agreements to date.
J'aimerais également revenir.
I would also like to go back to what was mentioned by Mrs. Pullman. The statistics are very interesting. We have a negative trade balance with the UE, and there are some needs for investors about taxes and duties and the regulations. The non-tariff barriers are very complex, so this has a lot of influence. So in your recommendations, you are talking a lot about communications with our SMEs and about predictability. So where do you think that we fail in that regard?
Well, I think historically, trade agreements have often been focused on the larger firms and their needs. And I think in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, we've been moving a little bit more and understanding that sometimes smaller businesses have very different needs. They don't have they are even less trade experts than I think the larger businesses are when it comes to these particular issues. So for smaller companies, you have to do a lot. You have to really think a little bit more about how to put things into plain language, how to make sure that they have the information that is clear and concise. They don't mind that if there are rules and duties that have to be paid. They just want to know the pathway to get to where they're going to go. And frankly, it's rare that I've met a small business that has engaged in trade that has not faced penalties or fines of some kind because it's such a complicated process. So anything that helps simplify that process for them from the moment they take it, so trade facilitation, the customs processes, to the regulations and rules they have to follow, to the duties and taxes they have to pay, that is going to help improve more small firms to get engaged, because the last thing you want to do is make it more and more difficult for them. You want to make it as easy as possible. So moving trade agreements to recognize that and communicate that more clearly and have governments work together to get that information across is going to be essential to make sure we get more small firms engaged in trade, because that's where we are going to have a lot more growth happen, is because we get those smaller firms into those trade agreements.
Thank you very much. On to Mr. Blakey, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Andexer, I'm just wondering if you'd like to take a minute to explain what some of the economic benefits to Canada would be of resolving the issue for UK pensioners living in Canada.
Certainly. Thank you for the question. Currently, because of the policy, the fact that there are no pensions being indexed here, we all have to pay taxes in Canada. And of the 136,000 people who are being denied their rightful pension, means that our income is obviously reduced, and therefore we're not paying the taxes in Canada. This ultimately leaves some people in a situation where they're struggling to survive, and Canada is forced through offering welfare and GIS supplements to bail these people out. The onus for supporting pensioners should not fall on the backs of Canada. It should be the responsibility of Great Britain. And if this policy was to end, it would save, it's estimated it would save close to $500 million to the Canadian economy every year. Pensioners tend to be spenders rather than savers, and it would just stimulate the economy.
Okay, thank you very much for that testimony. Mr. Sawyer, I wanted to ask you, I know we've heard many times at this committee already in this parliament some of the longstanding complaints of cattle producers with respect to access to the European market. We know that our trade deficit with our European trading partners has increased since CITA came into effect. And I know that you continue to be an ardent supporter of CITA, this transitional agreement, and having a new agreement. Just wondering what kind of empirical evidence might cause you to express dissatisfaction and opposition to a free trade deal?
Ooh, well, if it starts going in the wrong direction, obviously we would not be supportive of a trade deal that would do us harm. And so we're very supportive of the opportunities that are presented here. But in this particular deal, and the direction as we're talking about working with friendly allies and some understanding, because we too have worked closely with our governments, our trade negotiators, our industry, as well as working over there and working with them. I have nothing on the horizon, in my view, that should throw a monkey wrench into it. Okay, we're trying to get improvements, better stuff.
Okay, so not being able to meet your export quotas and having increased competition in the domestic market from our trading partners doesn't do harm to your industry, in your opinion?
It certainly does do harm, and that's why we're looking forward to the opportunities we can achieve here. So status quo is not acceptable with the non-tariff trade barriers. And certainly I think we've got an opportunity to progress through them. But definitely we've been done harm with these non-tariff trade barriers, as we've seen for many years. And the numbers I was putting out there, we went, from $500,000 difference to what was it, $98 million difference. That's huge. That's damaging to our industry and damaging to the economy here. So,
but despite the harm done, you're not prepared to say that you don't support the agreement. So even if the agreement is one that has been doing harm to your industry, it's one that you continue to support anyway. And one day I may be able to square that circle. We've heard similar testimony from the Canadian manufacturers and exporters that we are getting paper access to markets, but when you look at the numbers, it's not producing for Canadian manufacturers who still struggle to realize the opportunity of those markets. What kind of empirical economic evidence might cause you to think that a free trade deal is not in the best interests of Canada, that it's not working out, and we should go back to the drawing board to figure out different kinds of agreements or a different approach to our to structuring our economic activity, or is there none?
If I could jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Vaughn. I was going to pass it to you because I'm not getting the right answer.
Well, I only got so much time, so I'd like to go to Mr. Poirier because I only have a minute and change remaining.
Sure. For the way we approach it, manufacturers are free traders. We're one of the industries that don't have any similar protections, and we have been free traders for decades now, and our sector has adapted accordingly.
Now that has corresponded with a significant decline in the Canadian manufacturing industry. Is that not
yeah,
true?
But they're not necessarily associated. So with NAFTA, the value of what we produce is infinitely bigger than what it could ever been. Canada's market is simply too small to have a domestic untrading manufacturing market. So we need to have.
But to be fair, I mean, I don't think
markets.
anybody's talking about not having any trade. I mean,
right.
The choice isn't between the kinds of free trade deals that Canada has in fact been signing over the last 30 years and not trading with the world. Canada traded with the world prior to these kinds of free trade agreements and would have continued to trade with the world in the absence of these agreements. So these agreements aren't about whether we trade or not. They're about the terms of trade. Is there any kind of empirical economic evidence that would convince you that these kinds of agreements aren't working well for the Canadian economy? And if so, what kind of evidence is that?
I would view it more as, are we trading with like partners and in the around the globe? So are our economies similar, or do we have similar legal structures? As long as all those elements are in place, we can do business. You start to run into trouble when you're you're looking at making trade deals with countries that are not similar to us in those respects. With the UK, we have the same head of state, so we don't have those issues whatsoever.
So in that case, there's no economic evidence that would convince you that a trade deal isn't working out for Canada with the UK, regardless of its content. Because we have similar legal structures, there would be no reason to think that the deal was poorly structured. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, we'll never say never, but we don't foresee any of those types of economic problems. We're a good match, and which is why we have a trade agreement with them now anyways.
So you don't think we could be significantly out competed, despite some of the evidence coming out of your industry and your earlier testimony?
No,
about
not
us
if
not
we
being able to
address
realize the opportunities of the agreement.
Right. No, I think that we're trying to maximize a good thing already, and that's what I'm here to talk about. We do have some big challenges, but they're not insurmountable. And it's more to draw the attention internally here within Canada to start to get serious about addressing those business challenges.
Okay. So trouble with outcomes couldn't mean anything but Canada should, promote its exports more. There couldn't ever be a problem with the structure of the agreement, in your opinion, as long as we have a similar legal framework as the other country?
Okay, a short answer, Mr. Poirier.
That's right.
Okay, thank you very much. On to Ms. Gray for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank all of the witnesses for being here today. I wanted to ask a couple questions to Mr. Andexer from the Canadian Alliance of British Pensioners, and I wanted to thank you for mentioning the all-parliamentary group for MPs both in Canada and the UK that's led by Sir Roger Gale. I have participated in that. I know that other MPs have as well regarding this inequity in pensions. And I wanted to ask you, were you aware of any consultation process that occurred as we led up to this agreement?
Just recently, basically since Brexit has happened, Canada has made an official request again to the British government that this situation with the frozen pensions be addressed. As it sits at the moment, the British government have not responded, which, as was pointed out the other day in the UK-Canada MP discussion, rather rude on behalf of Britain. I think it behooves all aspects in Canada that we use every facet that we can to encourage Britain to officially respond to that request. The matter has been raised formally and informally for many, many years at all levels. Stephen Harper raised the matter with his counterparts at every G7 meeting during his time as PM. And the matter has just continually been ignored by Britain, using for many years the argument that they were not signing any new agreements. And of course, as we just discussed this morning, that's just completely gone out the window because of Brexit, where they've had to sign 23 new agreements. They're basically ignoring Canada's request, and it's time as a Commonwealth country, and that Canada stood up and said, we should not have to support your pensioners any longer.
Thank you. Well, one of the parts of this agreement is that after it's ratified, that the countries have to get to the table to start discussing a new successor agreement, and then to come up with a new agreement within 3 years. However, it's not binding. Is that a concern to you?
I think anything that would not bring this into a level playing field for all pensioners around the world is going to be a concern. The situation that exists right now under the European Union, where they've agreed to continue to index pensions, that basically was to save face. Most of the people living in Europe, they're much closer to the United Kingdom, that if they found out their pensions were going to be frozen, it would be very easy for them to return to the UK and put an awful lot of pressure on the health system, because we are seniors, and housing and everything else. They couldn't let that happen, and therefore they've made this agreement that they will continue to index pensions. But that's only in existence for those people who are currently in Europe at the moment. I feel it is extremely unlikely that they will not make the policy that all pensioners in the European Union will continue to receive an indexation. They should be encouraging people to leave the country. It's been proven that every pensioner in the United Kingdom costs £1,700 to the state every year, with healthcare costs, subsidies for bus licenses, and so on. So rather than discourage emigration, they should be encouraging it.
Great, thank you. I have a question for Ms. Pullman of the CFIB. Thank you very much for sending your document ahead of time. One of the parts that you had in here, and you did mention it briefly in your opening address, was around ensuring favorable trade conditions for small businesses. That was part of the survey that you did, and specifically internally. So presumably that would be within Canada. Can you maybe outline what some of those issues are and what some of those recommendations might be?
Sure. So obviously, trade for small businesses is both international and domestic. So internal trade is another very big area that needs to be worked on. And probably the issues are similar. In fact, what we found is that a lot of small businesses will start trading within Canada. And if they have troubles with that, then they think, well, if that's going to be tough, I'm not going to bother going internationally. So fixing internal trade is also, I think, a stepping stone to getting more firms to actually get involved in international trade. So that means reducing barriers between provinces. That means aligning our regulations a lot more easily across provinces, which is very similar to what we need to do when we start negotiating trade agreements with other countries. The other added feature, of course, in an international trade agreement is the trade processes, the customs processes you have to go through, which can be extremely complicated. And that's another key piece of all of this that I think is now starting to be addressed more and more, but I think is often forgotten because the duties sort of take the top echelon of issues. And sometimes for our members, duties are important, but at least they understand them, whereas the trade processes can be very complicated. So those are some of the things that need to be sort of really looked at in order to make it easier for small businesses to get involved in international trade. And within Canada, it's really about making sure that those trade barriers between provinces, so the regulations, the weird sort of standards that can happen from province to province, that start to be eliminated across the country.
Yeah. A short question, Ms. Gray?
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate that. They are certainly integrated. So as we're looking at this particular agreement, you know, and we do know that we'll be working on a successor agreement. That's actually part of the agreement. Do you have any really quick thoughts on that? You have said that you do want this agreement to go forth, and then just maybe really quickly what, you know, some of the, and what your top priorities would be moving forward.
Yeah, for us, it's really to make sure that there is a small business chapter incorporated into the UK trade agreement with Canada, because that is something that was missing in the CIIT agreement. While they did some work on small business as a part of a joint committee, there was never a sort of a specific mandate within the actual trade agreement itself to sort of look at the unique nature of small businesses and trade. So to us, that would be a very important aspect, and it would be sort of building on what's already been done in CUSMA and CPTPP, which are good, but they're stepping stones. And we'd love to see every time a new SME chapter is included in a trade agreement that it goes that much further to sort of addressing the actual issues that are confronting small business.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Bowman. On to Mr. Savard-Tremblay for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for Mr. Poirier. Earlier on, there were some questions about the dispute resolution mechanism. On behalf of members, he was saying that it was important to use a mechanism that would be similar or identical to what exists in previous agreements. But CUSMA has gotten rid of that mechanism. That's one of the first that has taken that mechanism out. It's been in place since July, this agreement. Have you noticed any major economic problems in terms of predictability? Have you observed perhaps a drop in investments? Do you think there have been some visible effects since the CUSMA?
These mechanisms are meant to protect. This hasn't been a big concern for our membership yet, and the loss of these mechanisms hasn't been felt yet. Mind you, there's been a lot of preoccupation with trying to just operate basic business, meeting business operations during COVID. So that might be masking a lot of problems there. But the world hasn't ended since that. It doesn't mean that we won't run into problems down the road, but it's not a major preoccupation at the moment.
But you did mention a preference with respect to this mechanism, while mentioning that there is no major problem with the fact that that mechanism no longer exists with the CUSMA, under CUSMA. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes, and also I would add that it's certainly not a deal breaker for us as well.
I just want to make sure that I understand you correctly. You're saying that it doesn't end what exactly? Doesn't put an end to what exactly?
It's the fact that, you know, there's a give and take in any negotiation, right? And we certainly understand that, you know, there were some changes in NAFTA if we're talking about that. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, the few concessions that we made for our sector, the few concessions that we made overall didn't affect our sector tangibly. So to us in our final analysis, that doesn't mean that we should not pursue or pursue, or rather just not. It means that we shouldn't not pursue a trade agreement because of those things.
Thank you very much. On to Mr. Dhaliwal. My apologies, I skipped over you, Mr. Dhaliwal.
No problem, Judy. You always do great work. So
5 minutes,
I'm always proud of you. So thank you to all the witnesses, Madam Chair. Mr. Poirier mentioned, you know, about small businesses, because when I look at my fellow member here, my friend Randeep and myself in Surrey, you know, most of the businesses are small businesses, and some of them are into manufacturing as well, which has, you know, some of them has disappeared over the past many years. You mentioned that cost of doing the business is too high, number one, and number two, finding the workers. If I look at this, the tax policy for small businesses, you know, going from 11 to 9%, which is probably one of the, you know, the lowest tax brackets that we have for small businesses workers. We have one of the best immigration system, where we are bringing in almost we'll bring in 1 million people over the next 3 years. With all these things in place, where do you think, you know, government can improve, particularly when it comes to this free trade with UK?
I think on the exporting side, there's sort of two tracks, right? There's the domestic business capacity. If we make that bigger and better and more efficient, there will be more items that we can manufacture and export as value-added goods. But on the trade side, there's a lot of excellent programs that the government currently offers through the various agencies, right? EDC, BDC, et cetera. The problem is that, especially for SMEs, they don't know that these things exist, and it's not a default setting to think to access them. So the government used to fund, used to leverage trade associations like myself and CFIB and others to great effect to try and leverage our networks and leverage our memberships to help them connect to government services. So on the export side, specifically in this trade agreement, if we could apply that, well, it would just be good generally for all exporters, for all our trade agreements, not just exclusively the Canada-UK one. That would go a long ways to helping link people, and then you can connect them into the larger global supply chains, the supply chains of larger Canadian companies as well. It sort of snowballs after that, so it's all positive in our view.
Ms. Bowman, can you comment on that, because you mentioned some of your clients will be affected as well?
Yes, they certainly are. And I would agree, our research has found the exact same thing as the CME, in that small businesses are very unaware of all the supports that are out there that governments provide. So it really is, I think, an important part of all this is to somehow find better ways to connect the two. The Trade Commissioner Service in particular, very few small businesses know about it. Those that have used it think it's great and really think it's done some good work, but it's like a fraction of the percentage of them that actually know it exists and what it can do to help them. And the same thing with many of the different programs that are out there. For example, there's the SME export program that provides subsidies to help businesses with their exporting. I don't know if that many actually are aware of it. We've certainly tried to push it out the door, but I think there's more work that can be done in sort of getting smaller firms aware of the supports that already exist. So I don't know if that's sort of getting at the question you were asking, but I would certainly say that that's a big part of it.
Like when you say government should leverage, is it you're looking for manual resources, financial resources, or if you can tell me tangible thing? When I look at the agencies around here which help with the employment or all, so they are given, they put a proposal in, the government makes decision, and they give the grants to them, so they are able to help new immigrants or other that are looking for jobs. So I just want to know what kind of resources government should put it in.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would again sort of not wanting to repeat Mr. Poirier, but the fact is that business associations, trade associations have that direct connection with business owners is probably one of the better ways to sort of get that. And I think the program that Mr. Poirier was talking about, where we used to actually have embedded trade commissioners, for example, in our associations, that could actually directly speak with our members about trade issues, was actually something that worked quite well in many trade associations. I think there's still maybe the odd one that exists, but many of them have been pulled in the meantime. Those are some of the ways that can be better connecting sort of, because the thing is, for a lot of small businesses, they don't always know what government can offer, and they don't always trust that they get the information, but they do trust their business associations a lot more. So I think that's a big tangible way that there can be a better connection made between small businesses and some of the resources that are out there. That would be the first thing I think I would try, but I think there are other things that governments can do as well. I mean, there are agencies that touch every single small business that is out there, like the CRA, that could potentially be leveraged in different ways, right? To give information beyond just the tax. So there are, I think, things that can be done that can be super creative, but
thank you very much. Sorry, I have to cut you off.
No problem.
On to Mr. Blakey for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Andexer, I was just wondering, I mean, obviously we're talking about trade agreements today. Many times there's a lot of non-tariff content in trade agreements. Is it your position that you would, prefer to see the extant issue for UK pensioners resolved in the context of a trade agreement, or do you think that the coming negotiations for a new agreement are simply a nice leverage point to try and get an independent agreement on the state of UK pensioners? How do you see this playing out, and what advice would you offer both to the committee or to government on how best to secure a resolution to this longstanding issue?
Thank you for the question. I think the answer to that rests with the people who are involved in the discussions. Yes, we would love to see that you include this as part of any trade negotiation. But I listened to all of the other witnesses, and basically what I'm listening and hearing is every one of these witnesses this morning is trying to get a level playing field for their association. And the whole purpose of a trade negotiation is to get economic benefit to Canada. And by pointing out that frozen pensions here are costing Canada $500 million, I would look for you to suggest as a trade committee that, yes, if you can include this, it's an excellent opportunity for you to level the playing field, and it's financially beneficial for you to do so. So if you can include it in trade, great. Use it as a bartering process or a negotiating deal, however we can get it resolved. It's just been going on far too long. And for Canada, for Britain to continue to penalize the Canadian economy, it's got to stop. And you have the opportunity, as you're going into these negotiations now, to use your power to do so.
Thank you very much. You know, Mr. Kennedy, Ms. Bendayan had talked about some of the amendments that are proposed, not for the agreement, but for this enabling legislation. One of those is a standard non-derogation clause that simply recognizes the existing rights of Indigenous peoples in Canada. It's been recommended by the Assembly of First Nations. If it were to pass today, it wouldn't require an amendment. It wouldn't get any more time than the time that's already been allocated. Does the Business Council of Canada have any objections to recognizing the existing rights of Indigenous peoples in the legislation?
I frankly don't know anything about the subject, but I can say that looking towards a future negotiation, like we did in USMCA, I believe there can be special focus on the rights of Indigenous people in trade, and that was a focus in the negotiation, something we could carry over in our next negotiation.
So nobody in your group has raised concerns about a delay in the implementation of C-18 because of a non-derogation clause in respect of Indigenous rights? That hasn't come to your attention?
It has not come to my attention.
Okay. But you have talked about other issues with C-18. Is that true? People have brought issues to your attention about the bill and concerns about delay?
Concerns about the implementation of the trade continuity agreement, as I've read it and understood it. Yeah, we want to continue the trade relationship.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that wasn't one of the concerns about delay.
Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you to the witnesses. We will suspend now so that the witnesses can leave and our departmental people can come forward so that we can start our legislative agenda section of the meeting. So we will suspend for just for a few moments while they do the witness check and sound check. Thank you very much to the witnesses. Valuable testimony.
Madam Chair, do we have
Alors, à l'ordre, s'il vous plaît. Je ne sais pas d'où cela venait, mais je vous présente nos témoins. Doug Forsyth, directeur général pour l'accès au marché, négociateur en chef pour l'accord de continuité. Rappel.
Thanks.
You can hear that as well? Yeah.
I was beginning to think that it was just me for a second. All right. Madam Clerk, we're having a problem here. We're hearing ourselves in our mic.
Technician is looking, oh, I'm hearing myself too. Technicians is looking into that. Thank you.
order for clause-by-clause consideration of C18. With us for witnesses, we have the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, Doug Forsyth, Director General for Market Access and Chief Negotiator, Canada-United Kingdom Trade Continuity Agreement, and Alison Trentholm, Deputy Chief Negotiator, Canada-United Kingdom Trade Continuity Agreement, Torsten Strom, General Counsel, Trade Law Bureau, and Brad Norwood from Finance, I believe, is going to be joining us as well. So thank you all very much. As we move forward on this, let's all be patient and go slowly as we move forward. Okay, so pursuant to standing, or we have our analysts with us, we have all of the advisors that are there to make sure that we're going in the right direction with this too, if we have any questions. So pursuant to Standing Order 75-1, consideration of Clause 1, the short title, is postponed. I will now call the clauses. Do I have unanimous consent to group the clauses when there are no suggested changes? Everyone's in favor of that? All right, I will move.
Sorry, Madam Chair, if I may just jump in, I've got my hand up.
Oh, yes, you do.
Thanks very much.
Welcome, Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much. I'm just subbing in, of course, for my colleague, Daniel Blakey. Can I propose that we do everything on division with the exception of clause 30, to which I would like to ask for a recorded vote. And then, of course, on the amendments, when we get to the amendments, then I would like to, at the appropriate amendments that I'm moving, I would like to propose a recorded vote as well. Is that okay? So that way I don't have to raise it at every clause as you go through.
I have to ask if the committee has any comments or thoughts about that. So you're suggesting that we move all the clauses. You want to repeat that again? Go slowly, Ms. Kwan, so the committee absorbs it all. Please do it again.
I'm proposing that we record the vote on division as you go through clause by clause, with the exception of clause 30, to which I would like to get a recorded vote. And then when we get to the amendments, then we will decide how we want to proceed on those. So just for efficiency, so that I'm not raising it every clause to say on division.
Is there any of the committee have any concerns or suggestions? All right, so we'll still group them. They'll just be on division.
Yes, thank you.
Correct? Okay. So then I'm moving clauses 2 to 6. Any comments? They will be carried on division. All those in favor? Everyone's okay with that?
Sorry, I oppose. On division, yeah.
Okay. All right, on to clause 6.1 from Mr. Blakey of the NDP.
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to move an amendment on 6.1, to which I believe all the committee members have a copy of. And the amendment is to add after line 20 on page 2, the following new clause, 6.1. This act is to be construed as upholding the rights of Indigenous peoples recognized and affirmed by Section 35 of the Constitution Act 1982, and not as abrogating or derogating from them. And the reason why, Madam Chair, that I would like to propose this amendment is because I think it is important for Canada's trading partners to know and understand the inherent and treaty rights of Canada's Indigenous peoples. We have, I believe, a moral and legal obligation to respect those rights. The AFN has asked for clauses like this to be included in trade deals, and this is part of what reconciliation means. The NDP, of course, were disappointed to see the Liberals voted down a similar amendment for the CUSMA trade deal. But with that being said, I hope we can learn from that situation and move forward. And I hope that committee members will support this amendment.
Ms. Bedian, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank my colleague, Ms. Kwan, for moving this proposed amendment. But I believe that she and all members understand that the Constitution holds primacy over all other domestic legislation that we implement, including C-18, and that the Constitution does recognize exactly what is being proposed in this amendment. So it is unnecessary. And I would just mention as well the importance of not including unnecessary additions into our agreements, because at that point, you can ask yourself the question, well, why aren't other constitutional rights, which are similarly of importance to all Canadians, not also mentioned specifically? I would also note that I did just this week speak to the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business. I am working hand in hand with Indigenous groups in order to ensure that their voice is heard in all trade negotiations, and have specific requests from that association in order to move forward on our negotiation of a free trade agreement with the United Kingdom, a comprehensive free trade agreement with the United Kingdom. So thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And while I appreciate the intent of my colleagues' proposed amendment, I will not be voting in favor of it.
Thank you, Ms. Bedian. Ms. Gray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We definitely have heard from the business community that is affected by trade that it's very important for them to have this agreement move forward. They absolutely want certainty and stability, and reopening up negotiations in this agreement could hinder that. And there are a number of other amendments that we do have copies of here that would require wholesome study. And so in order to move this forward, as we've heard is really important to Canadians and the business community, is why we wouldn't be looking at supporting these.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Not seeing.
Madam Chair, if I may just jump in.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that Ms. Kwan? Yes.
Yes. Yes, I'll be very quick just to simply say this. As we know from Canada's history, the Constitution explicitly recognizes the rights of Indigenous peoples, but it hasn't quite worked out for them very well, did it? And we don't have to look very far with the most recent situation with respect to the Mi'kmaq people and the fishing issue. And in any event, I do think that this language is important, and for us to make clear to our trading partners where we stand as Canadians with respect to the rights of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you. Monsieur Savard Tremblay.
I think that this amendment would mean that all the promises made to Indigenous peoples would be binding, legally binding. I don't think that just adding this amendment would pose a legal problem, and so I would vote in favor of the amendment.
Departmental officials, if they have any comment before I call for a vote and further discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think we have a comment. I think it has been, I think that unless you're looking for our opinion on it, but I think we have indicated that it's legally unnecessary due to the fact that the Constitution is always upheld, and the proposed clause appears to add an additional legal requirement where none is required.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forsyth. Not seeing any other hands up. I'm going to call for a vote on.
Could I get a recorded vote, please?
Yes, on NDP 1, a recorded vote, please.
Mr. Aria.
No.
Ms. Bendayan, Madame Bendayan.
Je vote contre, Madame Lagrappière.
Mr. Dhaliwal.
Yes.
Mr. Dhaliwal.
No. No.
Mr. Sarai.
Against?
Mr. Ellis.
Against?
Mr. Abultaif.
Abstain.
Ms. Gray.
Abstain.
Mr. Hoback. I didn't hear you, Mr. Hoback.
Sorry, I abstain.
Mr. Lobb.
Abstain.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay.
Je vote pour.
Ms. Kwan.
Or
5 nays, 2 yeas.
Thank you very much. Does not carry. All right, on to, I'm going to group clause 7 to 16. Do I have unanimous consent from the committee to group clauses 7 to 16 on division?
It's 15.
Everybody's okay with that?
It's
7 to 15. 7 to 15. All right, on division. All those in favor? All right, everybody's okay with that?
And
All right.
against on division.
Yes. Okay, now we have Mr. Manley is with us. I don't see him on my screen right now, but Mr.
I am
Manley?
here. Yep.
Good. Welcome to the committee. Glad to have you here.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair.
Would you like to speak to your proposed amendment? PV1.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to briefly put on the record that the Green Party MPs object to the larger parties in this House reducing our rights. The motion passed by this committee under the terms of which I appear today is not a favor to us. It is not an opportunity we requested. But for this motion, we would have the right under House of Commons procedures to move substantive amendments at report stage, subject to a vote of the House as a whole. The motion passed here and in every committee is the first time in the history of the Canadian Parliament that large recognized parties acted to reduce the rights of a national party with fewer than 12 seats. Further, we are the only Westminster-style parliament that sets a minimum number of seats for a party to be recognized as a party in the parliament. Our rights are restricted by this motion that this committee has passed. That motion obliges us to bring amendments here with no right to move the amendments, vote on the amendments, nor speak to our own amendments other than in a proscribed and limited fashion. So with that, I will bring forward my amendment. This amendment to Bill C-18 adds a sunset clause to ensure that the new agreement is negotiated and that the Canada-UK Trade Continuity Agreement does not just continue on with all of the provisions of the Canada-EU Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, or CITA. In the view of the Green Party, there are many flaws in the Canada-EU CITA that we would not like to see carried over in this Canada-UK agreement. If this agreement is extended by resolution, then a comprehensive and transparent review will be triggered and must include local communities, Indigenous people, and civil society organizations. So I propose that Bill C-18 be amended by adding after line 2 on page 6 the following new clause. 1, that sections 1 to 15 cease to have effect at the end of the 15th sitting day of Parliament after the 3rd anniversary of the coming into force of this subsection, unless before the end of that day, the operation of those sections is extended by resolution, whose text is established under subsection 6, passed by both houses of Parliament in accordance with the rules set out in subsection 8. 2, the related amendments enacted by section 16 to 49 also cease to have effect upon sections 1 to 15 ceasing to have effect. 3, a comprehensive review of sections 1 to 15 and their operation must be undertaken by any committee of the Senate, of the House of Commons, or both houses of Parliament that may be designated or established by the Senate or the House of Commons or by other houses of Parliament, as the case may be, for that purpose. The comprehensive review of Section 1 to 15 and their operations must A, take into account the perspectives of various groups, including local communities, Indigenous peoples, and civil society organizations such as registered charities, non-governmental development organizations, labor unions, environmental organizations, community groups, human rights organizations, and advocacy groups. And B, include an assessment of their impact in relation to Canada's sovereignty, the economy, jobs, trade balances, regulatory capacity, human rights, labor and environmental standards, the conduct of foreign investors in Canada and of Canadian investors in the United Kingdom, as well as on the rights of Indigenous people recognized and affirmed by Section 35 of the Constitution Act of 1982. 5, the committee referred to in Section 3 must, within a year after review is undertaken under that subsection or with any further time that may be authorized by the Senate, the House of Commons, or both houses of Parliament, as the case may be, submit a report on the review to Parliament, including its recommendation with respect to extending the operation of Sections 1 to 15.
Mr. Manley, I'm sorry,
Yes?
can I excuse me for interrupting? The committee does have a copy in its entirety throughout the bill, so it's not necessary to read it all out. The committee does have all that information.
Okay, so basically I'm asking for the same thing, the way that the European Union does trade agreements by including civil society, all levels of government, and ensuring that there is transparency in the process. Is this something that we don't have in Canada? And I've seen both parties, when they're in opposition, the Liberals and the Conservatives, complaining about a lack of transparency in the debates. I would find it humorous, except that it is actually undermines our democracy. And I think that people in civil society organizations that I've mentioned should be involved more thoroughly in our trade agreements, and we need a much more transparent process that involves parliamentarians and the levels of government that are affected by these agreements. And I'll leave it at that.
Fedayeen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just like to start off, because I will be referring to some of the important testimony that we've heard, including the very important testimony today relating to the importance of moving forward with Bill C-18, not going back to the negotiating table, which unfortunately the amendment proposed by our colleague from the Green Party would require us to do. And it comes back, of course, to his initial opening statement that he, is not present at committee. And just speaking for myself personally, I think that is unfortunate. And I would certainly have welcomed, and I believe all committee members on this committee would have welcomed his participation through our debate and witness testimony period of this study. In order just to complete the point on the reason why I will be voting against this amendment, to sum up, we have heard very convincing testimony from business community leaders, from civil society as well, that this transitional agreement needs to move forward in order to provide predictability and certainty to Canadians, especially Canadian exporters. We've also heard from officials and others that there are many incentives to bring the United Kingdom back to the negotiating table. The United Kingdom has also indicated that it is looking forward to coming back to the negotiating table, and there is a clause in the TCA which requires the parties to come back to the negotiating table. And so we will, in the context of negotiating that free trade agreement, be conducting extensive negotiations. We've already had exchanges with witnesses on how they would like to see those negotiations move forward. We have already indicated, as has the minister, that she plans on making this as broad a consultation as possible. And that is something entirely within the control of Canada. It does not need to be added into the agreement itself. And so I would invite the colleague opposite to contact me if he has specific civil society organizations that he would like us to consult prior to the negotiation of the comprehensive free trade agreement. And for all of the above reasons, I will be voting against the proposed amendment.
On to Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just wanted to say that we do share concerns without having a sunset clause in this. However, we right now absolutely do not want to be punishing exporters. The last thing that businesses and workers need is any kind of uncertainty. We are still in a pandemic, and when we look at the wording that is in the agreement of getting back to the table and having negotiations within a timeline, the government of the day, which would be 3 to 4 years from now, will be held to account at that time. And so we don't know what the implications of this are, but we did want to get a record that it is a concern as well. However, we don't want to do anything that could jeopardize our exporters right now. Thank you.
Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The NDP will be supporting the amendment. We have a similar amendment to move should this one fail. I think it is very important to actually have a sunset clause in the deal, because without a sunset clause, it is not a temporary or a transitional agreement. It actually, in effect, becomes a permanent trade deal. That's really what it means to not have a sunset clause within the trade deal. So we are going to be supporting this amendment.
And Mr. Savard-Tremblay.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to welcome our colleague from the Green Party. We hear your message. If on other occasions we can invite you, of course we will do that. We thank you for your contribution for this proposed amendment. Please note that there are a number of things in what you're proposing that I fully agree with, in fact. The importance of transparency. It's a real scandal, the lack of transparency in how this accord or this agreement was established. However, I'm concerned about this clause that you're talking about, because we don't know about what's coming, especially with the farming industry. For instance, our farmers, we were able to save supply management in the current agreement at the last minute, but we know that British cheese suppliers want to push for more exports. So maybe we managed by the skin of our teeth this time around. I wouldn't want us to impose, by setting an end date. I wouldn't want us to force in 3 years' time, force ourselves into some accepting something that is subpar. I see both pros and cons, and that's why we'll abstain.
Call the vote. So, Madam Chair, if no one there, so we can call the vote.
Okay, Ms. Kwan. I'm sorry, Ms. Kwan, your hand is up. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we will call the vote on, if there's no further discussion, on PB1, on division, I gather. All those in favor of PB1, please raise your hand. Are we getting a recorded vote on this one as well?
I thought it was on division. It was carried on division.
It's okay. All right. So, all right.
Sorry, point of order, Madam Chair. So are you
Madam Chair, it was not on.
No, not
okay,
carried.
So recorded vote. Recorded vote. It would be clearer.
Yep, please.
Would be consistent with a recorded vote. Yes. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so the vote is on PV1.
PB1.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Aria.
No.
Madame Bendayan.
Je vote contre.
Mr. Dhaliwal.
No.
Mr. Sarai.
No.
Mr. Ellis.
No.
Mr. Abultaif.
Abstain.
Ms. Gray.
abstain?
Mr. Hoback.
I will abstain.
Mr. Lobb.
Abstain.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay.
Je m'abstiens.
Mr. Blakey? Sorry, Ms. Kwan.
Yes.
So nays 5, yeas 1.
Okay, PB1 does not carry. Next, we have PB2. Mr. Manley, did you want to speak to PB2 briefly?
Yes, please, Madam Chair. So this amendment ensures that there will be full public consultations before negotiations begin on the new agreement, during that negotiation process, and after the agreement has been signed. Again, this is an amendment that's modeled on the European Union's process for trade negotiations and the transparency that is provided to elected representatives and civil society. This is not going to affect this agreement, but it is the process for going forward to negotiate this next deal. And I think it's important that we build in transparency into our process. This was something that was promised when we were negotiating in the House with the CUSMA agreement. And at the time, the minister said that we would have full transparency in our trade agreements and more transparency going forward. And I think that that's what we need to be doing. So
thank you, Mr. Manley. All right, I have Monsieur Savard Tremblay.
Briefly, I think this makes perfect sense. We have to make ourselves, we have to be consistent. If we want more transparency, it makes perfect sense to me. I could not understand us voting against something that makes perfect sense. I'm voting for it.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Well, I think, yes, Ms. Bedian.
I
think I need to make a ruling before we get into this, as is the House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 3rd edition. On page 770 says that an amendment to a bill that was referred to committee after second reading is out of order. Therefore, I will call this amendment inadmissible, and we will move on. Thank you very much. Mr. Manley, do you want to speak to PB3 briefly?
Sure. The purpose of this amendment is to provide transparency again in the negotiating process by holding meetings to promote dialogue between trade officials and representatives of civil society organizations. And again, this is an amendment that's modeled on the European Union's process for trade negotiations and transparency that is provided to elected representatives and civil society. And this is again something that the Deputy Prime Minister had promised during the CUSMA agreement in the House of Commons, said very clearly that we would have a transparent process going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. On to, it's the same issue as previous, PB2. It's an amendment to a bill that was referred to committee after second reading. It would be out of order if it is beyond the scope and principle of the bill, and I would rule that the amendment is again inadmissible. Okay, on to the next one is PB4. Mr. Manley, again, if you want to speak briefly, it is the same issue as previously. It'll be ruled inadmissible as it is an amendment that's referred to the committee after second reading. It's out of order and beyond the scope and principle of the bill. But if you want to speak to it briefly, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of this amendment is to provide transparency in the negotiating process by publishing the negotiation mandate and the initial agreement text. This amendment is modeled again on the European Union's process for trade negotiations and the transparency that is provided to elected representatives and civil society, something that's been promised in the House of Commons and something I would like to see going forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manley. Again, an amendment to a bill that was referred to the committee after second reading is out of order if it is beyond the scope and principle of the bill, so I therefore rule that the amendment is inadmissible. Thank you very much, Mr. Manley. On to NDP 2. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
PV5. We need to do PV5.
PV5.
NDP. Oh, did I miss PV? Oh, I thought I just did. I'm sorry. I have to go back to PV5 to Mr. Manley. Again,
I understand. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this, and then to reiterate again that the purpose of this amendment is to provide transparency in the negotiating process on the new agreement by publishing assessments of the economic, social, human rights, and environmental impact of any new agreement. This amendment is modeled on the European Union's process of trade negotiations and the transparency that is provided to elected representatives and to civil society, something that has been promised in the House of Commons during the CUSMA negotiations and the debate in the House of Commons on the new CUSMA agreement, and a commitment made by the Deputy Prime Minister and the government for transparency.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Manley. And as I had indicated earlier, I believe that your amendment goes beyond the scope and the principle of the bill, and I've ruled it inadmissible. So that's there, and we go on now to NDP 2. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's too bad that all the other amendments were ruled inadmissible. The NDP would have supported that. But notwithstanding, I'd like to bring back the issue around a sunset clause and the importance of a sunset clause, and I think all members will understand this. Without the sunset clause, the trade deal in effect is not really a temporary one or a transitional one. I think that the public and parliamentary process around the deal has really been a bit of a train wreck, really. And the government's and opinions, of course, change, and we should recognize that. We need to ensure that the future UK and Canadian governments do not decide to walk away from talks for a successor agreement and leave us with this deal as our permanent trading framework. One of the reasons for the government and for the government which have said that we can be certain that the UK will come back to the table is because the access to the Canadian cheese market will expire in 2023. But they have said that they won't provide any more access to our cheese market in future agreements. So either the Liberal government are misleading Canadians and the Canadian dairy producers again, or they did it as they did that in the CUSMA negotiations, or we need stronger assurance that Canada and the UK will be compelled to supersede this agreement. So to that end, Madam Chair, I'm moving the amendment that has been tabled with the sunset clause provision under section 15.1 sub 1. And so that would be by adding the language that has been provided to the clerk after line 2 on page 6 with a new clause, which really is the sunset provision. There are 10 parts to the sunset clause provisions that I'm proposing by way of an amendment. I will only just put on the public record, Madam Chair, clause 1 with respect to that, and then committee members can follow with respect to the other 9 clauses. So it would amend it by adding sunset provision, section 15.1 sub 1, subsections 1 to 15 cease to have effect at the end of the 15th sitting day of Parliament and after the 3rd anniversary of the coming into force of this subsection, unless before the end of
Appel
that
au règlement,
day.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Chair, the interpreter is noting that the figures are going by too fast for the proper interpretation.
Translations having difficulty being able to do the translation. We could just slow it down a bit, please.
I apologize. All right, so then the amendment, and just putting on the record on the first subsection on the sunset provision, it would read 15.1 sub 1, sections 1 to 15 cease to have effect at the end of the 15th sitting day of Parliament after the 3rd anniversary of the coming into force of this subsection, unless before the end of that day, the operation of those sections is extended by resolution, whose text is established under subsection 5, passed by both houses of Parliament in accordance with the rules set out in subsection 7. The rest of the amendments, Madam Chair, related to the sunset provision has been provided to the clerk in both languages. Instead of reading each part onto the record, I ask committee members to refer to that document, but effectively it simply stipulates clearly what the sunset provisions would look like and how it would apply.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bendayan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do just want to speak again briefly to this point because it is a very important one. Adding a sunset clause would require us to go back to the negotiating table with the United Kingdom, leaving our business community and particularly our Canadian exporters without the certainty that they need or the access, quite frankly, to the UK market that they require in the middle of a pandemic. I would also mention that adding a sunset clause further reduces predictability and stability because we do not know how the negotiations will go with the United Kingdom on a comprehensive free trade agreement. And I do not think that it is in the interest of Canadian businesses to have the possibility of a gap between the time that the sunset clause should end and that the negotiations should be finalized on a full free trade agreement. And I would note that it would provide extra pressure on our negotiators to perhaps cede things that we wouldn't normally cede in negotiations were we to have a finite end date. I would also like to add, with respect to the members' comments regarding the consultations that were done in advance of this transitional agreement, that there were 10 years of negotiations under CITA. This is a rollover of CITA. It is what we have been saying for quite some time now, but members now have all in front of them the text of the agreement and the enabling legislation and can see quite clearly that it is a reproduction of CITA until we have a full and comprehensive free trade agreement. I would be remiss if I did not add that those consultations were commenced by the Conservative government at the time and that those consultations were very effective. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
All right. Mr. Blakey, you have your hand up. Ms. Kwan has spoken to your amendment.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to respond to the Parliamentary Secretary's comments. I mean, I think it is wrong to say that because there was consultations on CITA, there's been consultations on this agreement. I think the process here was a train wreck. And I think it's really important to note that if we don't end up with a successor agreement, this is not a transitional or temporary agreement, this is a permanent agreement. And what kind of process was this? To have a permanent trade agreement with the United Kingdom, frankly. So no, the consultations on CITA, which I maintain and the New Democratic Party maintains was a bad deal anyway. And we've heard testimony even in the hearings on this bill that there are serious problems with CITA. So first of all, the consultations don't count for this agreement because this is about a permanent agreement with another country. It's only not permanent if we replace it. The government has said that there are 3 things that are going to get the UK back to the table. One is a good faith commitment to a new agreement, which in no way means that we will conclude a successor agreement. Canada has had intentions to sign agreements with other countries that we haven't in fact signed agreements with. One is around rules of origin. There may be some substance to that. The other one is around cheese. They say, well, the UK will want to come back to the table and get a new agreement because the cheese TRQs under the WTO are going to expire, except that they also say that they're not going to make any concessions on cheese. So why would the UK be incentivized to come back to the table on the issue of cheese if the Canadian government has no intention of making concessions on cheese? Which is it? Are they prepared to create further access to the Canadian cheese market under a future agreement? In which case, I could see the UK wanting to come back to the table for that. Or are they not? In which case, that's not a leverage point to come back. So one of the things that we can do is sunset this legislation so that this is something that has to come back before Parliament, so that there's internal pressure on our government to make sure that we get back to the table, and so that we don't end up by inertia having created a permanent and long-lasting trade deal with the United Kingdom today by passing this legislation that doesn't ever get to the stuff that the government continues to say is going to come up in a successor deal that we have no guarantee will actually be negotiated, never mind concluded. So I just find this whole idea of a transitional agreement, frankly, preposterous. I've said it many times, but the more the government brings it up, the more irritating I find it, because as this whole process has gone on, what we found is that in fact, we're signing a permanent agreement. Nobody signed up for that. Nobody was consulted about that. The government didn't even let on that that's what was going on until they had already signed the deal. I think it's preposterous. So let's stop pretending like somehow we've got this temporary transitional agreement. It's a permanent agreement until another one is concluded, and there's no guarantee of that happening. And parliamentarians should be doing what they can to ensure that we get back to the table in a meaningful process that issues in something other than CITA, which has not been great for Canada. We've heard in many different sectors how our trade deficit has increased as a result of CITA, and that Canadian producers and Canadian manufacturers continue to struggle to get entry into markets that they may have access to on paper, but they don't actually have any real access to.
Thank you, Mr.
That's why we should be supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Well done. Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just reiterate what I had mentioned earlier in that we also do have concerns that there is not a sunset clause and that the wording that is in here is not binding. However, that being said, now is not the time to be punishing exporters. We've heard very clearly from within the business community and from labor and workers that that it's really important to have stability and certainty. And we are still in a pandemic. And there is wording in here that that can be utilized to get back to the table, and it will be the governments of the day, the government of the day at that time, to be held to account in order to fulfill the obligations that are in the agreement. So I just wanted to get that on record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Back to Ms. Bedian, and then I'm going to call the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't mean to belabor the point, but there are a few corrections to be made to my colleague, Mr. Blakey. The witnesses that testified regarding CITA's implementation and the consequences of CITA on their businesses were specifically related to technical barriers to trade and not to the text of CITA. I can pull up the quotes from our witnesses. And today we heard from the Manufacturers Association, from the Business Council of Canada, from CFIB, which represents an enormous portion of our business community here in Canada, and they have all told us that going back to the negotiating table is not in the interest of Canadian businesses at this time, that we need the stability in order to move forward. And I would remind all members that we have a duty to our Canadian entrepreneurs in order to provide them with that stability. And it is reckless to ask the United Kingdom to come back to the negotiating table in order to add a sunset clause when what we want is to continue our productive relationship and return to the negotiating table for a full and comprehensive trade agreement. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Savard-Tremblay, your hand is up now. I was not up before, but please go ahead.
Oui, ben, très brièvement, je suis quand même très...
Very briefly, I'm very surprised. As for the proposal of the Green Party, I will have to abstain because I see something good. I understand the idea behind the sunset clause, and I agree with some of the critics of my colleague of the NDP. That being said, I fear more what could succeed this. But I'd like to emphasize that I'm surprised to hear today our Liberal colleagues tell us that the interest is not to reopen the negotiations while we're being guaranteed that if there's an agreement, we will go back to negotiating. I think that this is a change in the official message, and this doesn't change my position, but I would like to know if we will return to the table within a year or not, because we were told that it was the case, and finally it's not in the interest of Canadians. I know that you would like to go to the vote, Madam Chair, but could I answer my colleague?
Important, yes.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I was saying is that it's important to give predictability and stability to our business community and our exporters, because we will go back to the negotiating table for a comprehensive agreement. But if we go back to the table, the negotiating table, on this temporary agreement, we will have nothing to protect our exporters and decrease tariffs by 98%. So yes, we will return to the bargaining table as the agreement provides within a year, but we have to ratify this agreement or else we will jeopardize our exporters who depend on this UK market. Thank you.
Would you please call the vote? All those in favor of NDP 2?
A recorded vote, Madam Chair?
Sorry, recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote, Madam Clerk.
So on the NDP 2, amendment NDP 2, Mr. Aria.
No.
Madame Bendayan.
Je vote contre.
Mr. I vote against. Monsieur.
Against.
Mr. Sarai. Mr.
I
Sarai.
said no.
Mr. Ellis.
No. Just this one.
Mr. Abultaif.
Abstain.
Ms. Gray.
Abstain.
Mr. Hoback.
I will abstain.
Mr. Lob.
Abstain.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay.
I abstain.
Madam Clerk, I'm very happy to vote, but I wonder if because it was moved by my colleague from Vancouver East, if she
As soon as you entered the room, you recovered your right to vote.
Well, in that case, I vote yes.
Nays
Madam
5.
Clerk, I don't know if I
Yeas
got
1.
missed.
Does not carry. Mr. Sarai, did you have a problem?
No, I'm okay.
You're okay now. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. On now to block 1. Monsieur Savard-Tremblay, would you like to speak to your amendment, please?
Yes, you have the text. It's very short. I won't read it in full. We are proposing to have more transparency and want to be able to focus on what we want to see in an eventual permanent agreement. So we want the whole process to be transparent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savard-Tremblay. Before we 3:32, do I have permission from the committee to complete the agenda that we have for today? All those in favor of completing our agenda, everybody's good? Okay, thank you. All right, on to Mr. Savard-Tremblay, Madame Bendayan.
Je sais pas, est-ce que mon collègue a...
Did my colleague finish presenting the amendment? Was he done? I'm okay for now, and I will add information if necessary. Thank you. So I want to explain why I will be voting against this amendment. It is because this committee already has the power to do this review if that is the will of the committee. The parliamentary report mentioned in this amendment would require recommendations, and so I don't really know how we would be able to implement recommendations without amending the bill before us today. After ratification, we will have to go back to the negotiating table with, we would have to go back to the negotiating table with the United Kingdom to renegotiate the transitional agreement. Even though we want to negotiate a permanent agreement, I think that we have all the tools at our disposal to make sure that this committee's recommendations will be taken into account, and of course, Canadians' recommendations will be taken into account following a rigorous consultation process that will allow us to negotiate this permanent agreement within the next few years. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and we'll just comment that that this committee does have the authority to do reviews and studies at any time. So it's something that is full within the authority of this committee.
Thank you. Mr. Blakey?
I just wanted to say that despite the fact that it seems fashionable today to abstain on votes for things that we support, I will in fact be voting yes for this amendment.
Thank you all. All right, no further discussion on the block one. I will ask the clerk to please call the vote on a recorded vote.
So the amendment is on VQ1. Mr. Aria.
Yes, it is.
No.
Madame Bendayan.
Je vote contre.
Mr. Dhaliwal.
Against?
Mr. Sarai.
Against?
Mr. Ellis.
Against?
Mr. Abultaif.
Abstain.
Ms. Gray. I didn't hear you.
Abstain.
Thank you. Mr. Hoback.
I abstain.
Mr. Lobb.
Abstain.
Mr. Savard-Tremblay.
Je vote pour, bien entendu.
Mr. Blakey.
Yes.
Nays 5, yeas 2.
Okay. Does not carry. So next, I need to move clauses 16 to 29. All those in favor? Opposed?
On division.
On division, 16 to 29 carries. Mr. Blakey, Ms. Kwan mentioned that she wanted a recorded vote on clause 30.
That's correct.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call for a recorded vote on clause 30?
I didn't hear you.
Madam Clerk, would you like a recorded vote on clause 30?
That's
As
what I'm
requested.
trying to do. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Aria.
Yep.
Madame Bendayan.
Je vote pour.
Mr. Dhaliwal.
Against?
Sorry?
Against?
You are against? Mr. Sarai?
For?
Mr. Ellis?
For?
Mr. Abultaif?
Abstain.
Ms. Gray?
Abstain.
Mr. Hoback?
I abstain.
Mr. Lobb?
Abstain.
Mr. Savard-Tremblay?
Je vote contre.
Mr. Blakey?
I vote against.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeas 4, nays 3.
That clause does not carry.
Does carry.
Point of order, Madam
Sorry,
Chair.
I was going to, does not carry. It does
Can
carry.
I move
My
to uphold
apologies.
the decision of the clerk on that?
You can tell I was thinking about you, Mr. Blakey. All right, I just, we have to be, make sure we're kind and understanding to everybody, right? Okay, the next are the clauses 30, 31 to 50. All those in favor on division?
On division.
On division, carried. All right, Next is clause 51 and 52. All those in favor? Opposed?
On division.
Carried on division. Shall the short title carry? All those in favor, please raise your hands if you're opposed. Okay. Shall Schedule 1 carry? All in favor?
On division.
On division. Shall Schedule 2 carry? On division. Shall Schedule 3 carry? On division. Shall the title carry?
I don't oppose the title, Madam Chair.
Okay, I noticed I waited. Shall the bill as amended carry?
It has not been amended.
I was going to say there's no amendments went through here.
Actually, this might call for a recorded vote, Madam Chair, if we're doing the bill as a whole.
Okay. So we want a recorded vote on the bill itself.
So the question is, shall the bill carry?
Yes.
Mr. Aria?
Yes.
Madame Bendayan?
Oui.
Mr. Dhaliwal?
Yes.
Mr. Sarai?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Abultaif?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Hoback?
Yes.
Mr. Lobb?
Yes.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay?
Oui.
Mr. Blakey?
No.
Yeas 10, nays 1.
All right, carried. All right. Shall the chair report the bill to the House? All those in favor? Yes. Thank you. And shall the committee order a reprint of the bill as amended for the use of the House at report stage?
Madam Chair doesn't need a reprint because no amendment were adopted.
So we don't need a reprint because there were no amendments adopted. That's wonderful. Thank you all very much. Congratulations. We've got C18 through our committee and into the House. I want to thank all of our witnesses and everybody in our help to get through this afternoon. It's very much appreciated. Just for the interest of the committee, when we return on March the 8th, I'm going to suggest that we have the WTO reform for that week and that at our first meeting with committee business as well on the first day back. So we can further discuss any other upcoming studies that we want to do. Thank you all so much for your cooperation today and your help. We've got another bill through, so we're pleased. Thank you all very much.
Quick point of order, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I think we should thank the negotiating team and thank the clerk and everyone that was involved.
Exactly.
We didn't get to do that at the beginning, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gray.
Here,
okay,
here.
thank you.
And
All have a
thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Badayan, for your help and your assistance. Okay, have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the sunshine. Thank you. Adjourn the meeting.